diamonds out there. And it's not a bad flop for Tom Dwan, but Chris Ferguson has outflopped him. Phil Ivey has flopped the gut shot, but if he hits his gut shot, Tom Dwan makes a full house.
Well, he's reaching for some chips, looking like a continuation bet. He's got a lot of players to get through with this bet, but if he's not going to bet this kind of a flop with his 2-8s, what does he need?
7,200.
Don't think Phil's likely to call this. He's got players behind him, only got a gut shot.
You know, sometimes in position, Phil Ivey might be floating here, but with so many of the players behind, he's really got nothing. He's got 2 hearts in his hand, but you know, Phil Ivey, one of the best in the world.
What do we know? If he decides to put the chips in, it's probably the right play.
Oh, probably the right play for him. And it's a $7,200 bet from Tom Dwan, actually on Phil Ivey.
Looks like he's staring at some more chips. Just eyeing up the other 3 players behind him.
Now you look at a flop like this. 2 diamonds out there, possible straight draws as well, paired board. Is this the kind of board you might be making a move on?
Well, he's decided to lay it down. I think if he hasn't got the 3 players behind him, he might call with position, float a card, and see what Tom decides to do on the turn. But as it happens, he's got out of the way. It's going to be a tough decision for Chris. If Phil had called, he might have laid this hand down, but I don't think he's going to now.
Yeah, well, with everybody else folding, now Ferguson only has to worry about Tom Dwan. He's flopped top pair with a queen kicker.
But he's out of position. This is Chris, who's probably maybe the least experienced in a cash game environment out of these players.
Obviously such a great tournament player.
Exactly. So he still knows the pretty well value of hands, and he's decided to make the call.
On turn. 10 of clubs.
Turn is a 10 of clubs.
Gives a good shot straight draw for Tom Dwan. Would have hit Phil Ivey if he had decided to float one.
Check.
Now the board is somewhat draw heavy. Does Tom Dwan think he's ahead here? Does he think maybe Chris Ferguson's on a draw?
Well,
check.
Well, he's gonna check it. We're gonna see a river.
10.
I think he's happy to take the free card. That's pretty well brought. A lot of cards, a lot of hands completing with that 10. Would have been particularly good for Phil Ivey if it had stayed in.
If somebody was in there with diamonds or somebody was in there with 7-8, that 10 of diamonds completed both draws.
Check.
And Ferguson going to check this down.
So
Dwan checks as well.
2 pairs.
And Ferguson's going to win this with a better 2 pair. He's got 10s and 9s. Tom Dwan with 10s and 8s. And Chris Ferguson wins a nice pot there. $26,000 headed to Chris Ferguson.
Yeah, I think there was maybe an opportunity for Tom to bet the turn. I think it was a good pressure bet he could have made. Of course, he's worried that maybe that's completed Chris's hand, or Chris is sitting there with a 6, and he may be happy to take the free card to maybe bust a 6 by catching the 7 or 8. I'm not surprised he checked it, but possibly an opportunity missed.
The FullTiltPoker.net $1 million cash game. $1 million on the table. Blinds are $300, $600 of the 100 running ante.
6 to call.
Beautiful venue in the heart of London. And not a beautiful hand for Phil Ivey. That's not going to stop him. Most mere mortals would throw 10-4 in the muck. But Phil Ivey looks like he's going to play this one. And I'm pretty sure, did Ivey limp in there?
Yeah, Ivey limped.
27, sorry.
It's a raise from Patrick Antonius to 2,700.
It's an odd limp there. Not a short-handed game, but 7-handed. To limp in an early position with 10-4 suited.
I think he's just trying to mix it up a little. Wants to play a couple of hands early on.
27 to call.
Possibly feels like he's not in the game at the moment.
Well, one thing that's interesting, every single year we see the $1 million cash game, we see Phil Ivey, we see him mix it up. And sometimes he's down a couple $100,000, but at the end of the day, he always seems like he's the big winner.
He has had some of the biggest pots in televised poker. was it over 800,000 we saw in one of the previous series he managed to win.
And it was between these two guys, actually, Patrick Antonius and Phil Ivey.
Well, here he goes catching a bit of a hand here.
Well, it's an interesting flop. We had the flush draw for Patrick Antonius and an open-ended straight draw for Ivey. King high is the best hand right now.
$5,100.
And Antonius is going to bet 5,100.
Cool.
And Phil Ivey is going to call.
Fold.
Well, Phil's gone in front right now, but it's still a pretty scary-looking card.
Check.
It's a very scary board there. I mean, you got 3, 4, 5, 6. You got a one-liner to a straight. But Patrick Antonius raised pre-flop. Would you put your opponent on a 7 or a deuce here?
Check.
Well, it goes check, check. Here comes the river.
Queen.
And the river's the queen of diamonds. Misses both players.
Check.
Okay.
Check.
And both players check the river.
Showdown.
Phil's going to take this one down. Managed to get a little bit lucky by catching the 4.
And Patrick Antonius is probably wondering, if I bet one more time, do I win this pot?
Well, we'll never know, and Phil's going to be counting the chips.
Good hand, no? Good hand.
Phil Ivey, second on an all-time money list. Adds $18,000 to his stack.
Tell them why you are who you are.
The hand plays itself.
It did.
Hi, I'm Phil Ivey, 7-time WSOP bracelet winner. When I first started playing, I played, 16 hours a day, every day for the first 4 or 5 years. So I really just kind of gave up my life to poker. I didn't really have a mentor. I spoke with people that I played with, got their opinions on certain hands that would come up and things like that. I really respected Chip Reese, one of the best players ever, if not the best. And I just enjoyed playing with him. I enjoyed his company, and just a wonderful person. They're all pretty good people at the table, so, but we're all trying to take each other's money. There's no doubt about that.
I just never won a hand. I ended up losing that day.
Wow. How much did you win in flips? 500 or 400? 400. How much did I win in flips that day, Pat?
6.
Well, some things that never change. Our big winner so far is Phil Ivey. He's up $18,000.
Flipper than, like real good at poker.
Tom Dwan, down a few thousand already. Patrick Antonius is the most money at the table, but he bought in for 400.
Than poker. Poker's, hard work. I like, those luck games. You just run good in them.
Ivey with the worst hand in poker. Well, it's almost like a handicap that he should have. The best player in the world with the worst hand in poker. And he raises it up.
Oh, I work harder than you do.
It's actually a re-raise of Tom Dwan's raise.
Got stuck and then tilted your way into playing like 70 hours a day.
Tom Dwan originally raised it up to 2,100 with 7-5 of clubs. Phil Ivey doesn't give his opponent credit for anything. He's going to re-raise him with 7 deuce. Obviously not playing his cards, he's playing his opponent. On top of that, he has position.
You're all the same.
9 king jack.
Nothing for either player, so I'd expect a bet here from Phil.
Check.
King, jack, 9, couple of hearts out there. Dwan checks.
When you start firing with a 7 deuce, you know that you're probably going to have to keep bluffing because you're not likely to have a showdownable hand.
11,000.
Now it's a question of whether Tom wants to have a replay.
Phil Ivey bets 11,000 into about a 15,000 chip pot, and that's going to be enough to take it down.
I'm going to bluff Phil one big hand today to make up for what he did to me the last year.
And Phil Ivey showing us all why he is one of the best in the world.
Back normal, Ivey's winning most of the pots.
And why you don't even need cards to win sometimes.
I can't get those flips, though.
I don't really need much of a...
Here we are at the FullTiltPoker.net $1 Million Cash Game.
One, enough.
I mean, I don't need many hands to start.
Tom Dwan first to act with the ace-4 offsuit.
Pass.
Well, he reached for some chips and changed his mind. Here comes the mouse.